all clear as to where the heck do these crazy bond prices come from? Is somebody out there just making up these prices? It feels like it, because you just call your broker and you say, hey, I'm interested in that bond that matures in 10 years. Can you tell me what it's worth? And they're like, hold on. They come back and they spit out a number to you, and you're like, okay. I mean, it's very mysterious what's going on, and we want to just break down and let you know what is going on there. How are they coming up with bond prices? Where is all this stuff coming from? Why do bonds go up and down in value? What does all this mean? So today what we want to focus on, and I'm just going to show you this real basic thing, you can kind of think about it, and then we'll take a break. When you buy bonds, they are generally, we'll say it's an IBM bond, in $1,000 increments. You can buy them in bigger increments, but generally companies sell bonds in $1,000. And unlike stock, bonds have a maturity. Okay, so we'll say this bond matures in 5 years. It could be 20 years, it could be 100 years, 30 years, 7 years, whatever. 3 years, 10 months, okay? But we'll say this one matures in 5 years. And we'll say that this one has an interest rate of 4%. This is how bonds work. If you out here are interested in buying this bond, you'll pay the price for it, and what you receive in return is in 5 years from now, you get what they call, this is called the face amount. Okay? This is the $1,000. We call that the face amount. It's the amount on the bond. So in 5 years, if you buy this bond, you will get $1,000. In the meantime, every year, and generally bonds pay twice a year, you will receive interest at 4%, but it's paid in 2 installments. So in this case, in this bond, how much interest am I going to receive? It's 4%, it's always on the face amount, and so 4% of $1,000 is how much? 40 bucks, and if it pays it out in 2 installments, every 6 months you're going to get what? $20. That's how this works, okay? When a bond matures, you get the face amount back. In the meantime, you get the interest, the amount on the face amount, okay? This amount on the bond is called the stated rate. It's the interest that the bond pays. And that is how bonds work.
How much do you usually pay for it then?
That's the problem, okay? That's the nightmare. In a perfect world, every time we issued bonds, we would hope that the stated rate matched what we call the effective rate. That rate which is in the market. That rate which every other similar bond has to pay. So we call this the effective rate, the going rate, the market rate. So the market is what determines bond prices. And it's based on so many factors: interest rates, risk of the underlying securities, okay, all kinds of things, default risk. But in a perfect world, if the market rate was also 4%, meaning that's what the bond should have to pay in interest, and the bond is actually paying 4%, you would buy this bond for $1,000, okay? Because it pays 4%, the going rate is 4%, and what kind of return will you get if you buy this bond for $1,000? How much interest, in essence, are you getting? 4%. You're getting 4%. That's your return. You're basically lending them your $1,000. They're paying you 4% on that amount, and then you're getting it back. So your rate of return would be 4%. Okay, in the perfect world, that would be great. But what do we know about interest rates? They fluctuate all the time. And the chances of a bond's stated rate matching the going or market rate isn't really that good. Okay, it happens, but they change all the time. Plus the underlying company. Things might change with the underlying company, making them riskier or safer, which then also changes the effective rate. For instance, a lot of people always think bonds are safer. I always read finance books and I want to pull all my hair out. They're always like, bonds are generally a safer investment than stock. Well, I guess they did say generally. But shit, I mean, I don't know if that's always the case, because you go back a number of years, if I woke up one morning and was holding on to Enron debt, and we know what morning that was when, you know, they were filing for the largest bankruptcy of all time or something, versus Pepsi stock, what year did Enron blow up? Anybody remember? Was it 2001? Was it 2000? I mean, it was September 11, I always lose it. Okay, so let's say this was your choice. To have Enron debt in 2001 and some, before it blew up, you bought it before it blew up, or Pepsi stock, which is a safer investment? Of course Pepsi stock. So a lot of people always say, oh, bonds are so safe. They're not safe if you buy junk, okay? Or unfortunately, I believe at the time this thing blew up, it probably had a AAA rating, okay? So you can't even rely on the rating agencies to tell you that there's a problem ahead, get off, okay? So unfortunately, you know, be very leery. I hate when people talk about one thing being safer than another. I'm like, you know, that's not always the case. But anyway, the issue here though is what happens when something happens either in the market or to IBM in general, and let's say that the effective rate is different from the face amount. Okay, so let's just take for instance, let's say the effective rate is 5%. That means you can get a comparable bond that pays 5% instead of this bond that pays 4%. Well, which bond do you want, the 5 or the 4?
5.
Of course you want the 5. You want 5%. So how is IBM going to sell its bond if everybody wants the bond that pays 5%? Right. Okay? This is how we sell everything that people don't want. You just drop the price on it until at some point they go, I'll take that. Okay, you guys have all done that, right? You go into a store, you see something, you look at the price, you're like, whoa, I'm not paying that. You come back a couple of months later, it's on the clearance rack, and then you're like, I'll take it. Okay? So at some point, IBM's going to drop the price low enough in which you're actually getting a 5% return, and then you buy the bond.
So they'll drop the bond price, say $900.
Yeah,
and
whatever
then
comes
in
out.
5 years you get the 1,000 back.
Yep, that's how it works. Okay, beautiful. You'll pay, we'll figure out what the amount is after the break, but you'll pay some amount for the bond, less than $1,000. They will give you $1,000 when it matures still. It's always, they always give you the face amount. You will still get your $20 every 6 months. It's 4% on the 1,000. But the reason you're getting a 5% return is you didn't pay full price for the bond. You paid a discount. Right?
So you get the 4% on the 1,000, not what you paid for it.
Exactly. Okay, you get the 4% on the 1,000, okay?
Yeah.
And in essence, what all we're doing here, the math behind it's crazy, but the only thing we're accomplishing here is they're going to drop the price low enough that you get a 5% return, because we're going to match whatever the market rate is. You're getting a 5% return, it's costing them 5% to borrow money. Okay? What do you think is going to happen in this case? The effective rate's 2%. The company pays 4%. Charge more. Okay? They're going to raise the price.
Once you're in at the 4%, are you locked into the 4% for the 5 years?
Now that's awesome, and that's why old people love these for retirement, okay? Because you're right. Once you're locked in, now your bond price might be flying all over the place, going up and down in value. But many of us, especially if we're retired, you don't give a darn. Because if I buy this, okay, let's say that at the time I buy this, the effective rate matches the stated rate. If I hold on to this for all 5 years, I'm getting what type of return? 4%. I'm always getting a 4% return. Now, in the meantime, bond prices might be going, interest rates might be going all over the place. But if I plan on holding this the entire time, I don't care. I'm getting my 4% return because I paid $1,000. I'm getting my 4% interest. Unfortunately, what ends up sometimes happening to people, or fortunately, depending on what side of the transaction you're on, is you decide, oh my goodness, I need the money. Okay, I'm going to sell the bond. All right, so you bought the bond at $1,000, you paid 4%, it's still paying 4%, but you need to get out of this bond. You need to sell because you need the cash. And at the time you are selling it, here you are, at the time you're selling it, interest rates for comparable bonds are 6%. Your bond's only paying 4. What do you think the value of your bond is? It's gonna return 4%, the rest of the market is paying 6. Has your bond gone up in value or down in value? Down, because nobody wants that. They can go get a bond that pays 6. So unfortunately what happens is, you could hold on to it and still get your 4 and be happy with it, but if you need the money, you gotta sell it, and now your bond is selling for like $780,000, and you bought it for $1,000. Okay, so that's the other big risk of bonds. If all of a sudden you're locked in, and you need the money and interest rates changed, sometimes you're out of luck. Now in a better scenario is, you're holding on to this bond, you're willing to take your 4%, but all of a sudden you're like, whoa, interest rates are up to 2%. What happens if you go to try to sell your bond? The effective rate's only 2. Your bond's gonna sell at a premium. So you're pretty happy. You're like, wow, this is nice. Your only problem is, now when you wanna invest in something else, the best you can do in the market today is the 2%. So you gotta weigh the alternative. If I just hold on to it, I get my 4. If I sell it, I get a little premium there, but I can't reinvest in anything that pays more than 2. So these are kind of the weird things that happen with bonds. Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's make 15, because this is going to get ugly. We'll come back. We'll take a 15-minute break, and